Ignoring physical health through poor habits is one of the most dangerous mistakes a person can make, yet it is also one of the most common. Our bodies are designed to serve us for decades, carrying us through every challenge and joy of life, but when we neglect them, we silently cut years off our lives and compromise the quality of the time we do have. Poor habits such as eating processed foods, consuming too much sugar, smoking, drinking excessively, avoiding exercise, and sleeping irregularly are not just small mistakes, they are decisions that accumulate into life-threatening consequences. The tragedy is that most people only realize the cost of these choices when it is already too late, when the damage has advanced to the point of no return. Imagine a car that is never serviced, never cleaned, never given the right fuel. Eventually, it breaks down beyond repair. The human body is much the same. Without proper care, without the right fuel, without consistent attention, it deteriorates faster than it was ever meant to. One of the biggest contributors to ignoring health is diet. Food is not just about taste or satisfying hunger, it is the fuel that powers every organ, every cell, every thought, and every action. A poor diet rich in fast foods, fried meals, sugary drinks, and excessive caffeine might provide temporary satisfaction, but in the long run, it drains the body. Obesity, diabetes, heart disease, and even certain cancers are closely linked to what we eat daily. A single burger or soda may seem harmless, but when consumed habitually, these choices compound into devastating outcomes. Even worse, people often ignore the warnings their bodies give them: low energy, constant fatigue, headaches, indigestion, and instead turn to more stimulants like coffee, energy drinks, or junk snacks. This vicious cycle masks the problem without solving it, creating a ticking time bomb within the body. Exercise is another pillar of health that is often overlooked. Modern life encourages convenience. Elevators replace stairs, cars replace walking, and screens replace physical activity. People spend hours sitting at desks, slouched over phones, or lying on couches, unaware that this inactivity is slowly killing them. Lack of exercise weakens the heart, stiffens joints, reduces lung capacity, and slows down metabolism. Over time, the body becomes fragile, vulnerable to diseases, and incapable of handling stress. Regular exercise, on the other hand, strengthens not just muscles but also the immune system, mental clarity, and emotional balance. Yet so many continue to ignore it, promising themselves they will start tomorrow, a tomorrow that rarely comes. What they fail to see is that every skipped workout, every day of inactivity, every excuse adds up. By the time health issues surface, the cost is heavy, both financially and physically. Smoking and excessive alcohol use are perhaps the clearest examples of deadly habits. No one can claim ignorance about the dangers of smoking. The warnings are printed on every pack, stories of cancer and lung disease are well known, and yet millions continue the habit. The addiction blinds people to the reality that every puff is shortening their lifespan, damaging lungs irreparably, and poisoning their bloodstream. Alcohol, too, is glamorized in social settings, but behind the scenes, it is silently eroding the liver, damaging brain cells, and destroying families through addiction. People drink to escape stress, to feel pleasure, or to fit in, but what they often fail to realize is that they are trading temporary relief for long-term destruction. The mind may convince them that one drink or one cigarette is harmless, but in truth, each repetition builds dependency and deepens the harm. Another neglected aspect of health is sleep. In a world that glorifies productivity and hustle, sleep is often treated as a luxury instead of a necessity. People boast about surviving on 4 or 5 hours of sleep, thinking it makes them stronger or more disciplined, but the truth is the opposite. Sleep is the body's natural repair mechanism. During deep sleep, the brain clears toxins, the body repairs cells, hormones balance, and energy is restored. Depriving the body of sleep leads to poor memory, irritability, weakened immunity, and increased risk of chronic illnesses. Over the years, the cumulative effects of sleep deprivation are devastating: accelerated aging, mental decline, and reduced life expectancy. Yet, many continue scrolling through phones late at night, binge-watching shows, or working endlessly, ignoring the silent cry of their body for rest. Stress is another silent killer tied to poor health habits. While not always avoidable, how one manages stress makes a huge difference. People who neglect their health often turn to unhealthy coping mechanisms: junk food, alcohol, smoking, or overworking. Instead of addressing the root cause, they numb themselves with temporary fixes that only worsen their physical state. Chronic stress elevates blood pressure, weakens the heart, and disrupts digestion. It triggers inflammation in the body, a root cause of countless diseases. A healthier response, exercise, meditation, proper sleep, balanced diet, could reverse these effects, but ignoring health makes the stress spiral even more destructive. The saddest part is that people usually ignore their health because they believe they have time. They think the consequences are far away, that they can quit smoking later, start exercising next month, or change the diet when it becomes absolutely necessary. But diseases like heart attacks, strokes, and cancer rarely give warnings long enough for a person to reverse decades of damage. By the time the consequences appear, the options are often limited, expensive, and painful. Hospitals are filled with people who once thought they had plenty of time. Regret becomes their constant companion, as they look back and wish they had taken small, consistent steps to protect their health earlier. The future is built on today's habits. A person who ignores their physical health is not only risking their present comfort but also robbing their future self of vitality, independence, and joy. Imagine old age with strong bones, clear mind, and a healthy heart versus one filled with pain, hospital visits, and dependency on others. That difference is decided not at age 60 or 70, but today, in the small daily choices: what you eat, how much you move, how well you sleep, and what harmful habits you avoid. Protecting physical health is not about perfection. It is about consistency, about valuing your body enough to give it what it needs to thrive. Ignoring physical health through poor habits is, therefore, not just a personal issue but a moral one. Your body is the vessel through which you experience life, fulfill responsibilities, and pursue dreams. Neglecting it not only harms you but also affects your family, your work, and your contribution to the world. By destroying your health, you reduce your ability to live fully and to serve others. Quitting deadly habits is not an act of self-denial, it is an act of self-respect. It is choosing life over slow death, strength over weakness, and future over regret. The earlier one recognizes this truth, the greater the chance of building a life filled with energy, resilience, and fulfillment. Feeding the mind with negativity and stress is one of the most silent yet destructive habits a person can carry throughout life. Unlike physical habits that show the damage clearly on the body, negative thinking and constant stress work subtly, corroding the mind from within until they spill over into every area of existence. Thoughts shape emotions, emotions shape actions, and actions create the future. When thoughts are poisoned with fear, doubt, worry, and anger, the entire chain becomes tainted. Life then becomes a constant struggle, not because external circumstances are always hostile, but because the mind is locked in a pattern of resistance and suffering. The mind is like soil. Whatever seeds you plant, positive or negative, will grow. If you allow negativity to dominate, your inner garden will be filled with weeds that choke out peace, joy, and productivity. Negativity often begins with small, unnoticed patterns. A person might wake up and instantly think of what could go wrong in the day. They focus on problems instead of opportunities, setbacks instead of lessons. Over time, this default way of thinking becomes ingrained. The brain develops neural pathways that favor negativity, making it easier to complain, criticize, and fear rather than appreciate, encourage, and hope. This habit doesn't just stay in the mind. It alters the body as well. Scientific studies have shown that negative thoughts increase stress hormones like cortisol, weaken the immune system, and make the body more vulnerable to diseases. In other words, the simple act of entertaining negativity every day is not just harming mental peace, it is physically shortening life. Stress is the fuel that keeps negativity alive. In moderation, stress can be useful. It alerts us to danger and pushes us to act. But chronic stress is like leaving a fire burning constantly in the background of the mind. It drains energy, distorts perspective, and steals clarity. A stressed person cannot think rationally. They exaggerate threats, underestimate their strength, and view the future with fear instead of confidence. The tragedy is that most of the stress people carry is not from real emergencies but from imagined ones. They worry about things that might never happen, replay mistakes that cannot be changed, or compare themselves endlessly to others. The mind, in its constant state of anxiety, traps them in a prison without walls. Negative thinking often manifests in self-doubt. When a person constantly tells themselves they are not good enough, smart enough, or capable enough, they create a self-fulfilling prophecy. Opportunities that could have been seized are ignored because of fear of failure. Relationships that could have flourished are sabotaged because of mistrust or insecurity. Dreams that could have become reality are abandoned before they even start. Every time the mind feeds on such negativity, it erodes confidence and strengthens weakness. Over the years, a person who might have had immense potential ends up living far below what they were capable of, simply because they allowed negative thinking to dominate their choices. Another form of negativity is anger and resentment. Holding on to grudges, replaying past hurts, or constantly blaming others poisons the mind even more deeply than self-doubt. Anger consumes mental energy like a fire consumes wood. It leaves a person restless, irritable, and unable to experience peace. Worse, it spills into interactions with others, creating toxic relationships and environments. A negative person rarely suffers alone. Their energy spreads, affecting friends, family, and colleagues. They become difficult to be around, pushing people away and reinforcing their own isolation. The cycle of negativity deepens, leaving them lonelier and angrier with each passing day. Stress and negativity are also intimately tied to comparison. In today's world of social media, people are constantly bombarded with images of others' successes, wealth, beauty, and happiness. Instead of appreciating their own journey, they measure themselves against unrealistic portrayals of life. This leads to feelings of inadequacy, jealousy, and restlessness. They stress over not being enough, and forget that their value is not determined by how they compare to others. Constant comparison is a poison that feeds negativity daily, leaving people blind to their own blessings. Negativity also thrives on language. The words a person uses shape the way they think. Constantly saying, "I can't," "It's impossible," or "Nothing ever works out for me," reinforces defeat. On the other hand, choosing empowering words changes perception and, eventually, reality. Unfortunately, many people don't realize how their habitual language is feeding stress and negativity. They joke about failure, speak harshly about themselves, or complain endlessly, not realizing that every word is programming their mind deeper into despair. Stress and negativity don't just affect the mind and emotions, they directly damage the body. Chronic stress has been linked to heart disease, high blood pressure, digestive problems, insomnia, and even memory loss. The mind and body are inseparably connected. When the mind is constantly flooded with negative thoughts, the body remains in fight or flight mode, pumping stress hormones, increasing heart rate, and suppressing immune function. Over years, this constant state of tension wears the body down. Many illnesses are not caused merely by external factors but are worsened or triggered by the stress we carry unnecessarily. The good news is that negativity, like any habit, can be unlearned. The mind is not fixed, it is shaped by what we feed it. Just as years of negative thinking create deep pathways in the brain, consistent positive thinking can create new ones. Gratitude is one of the most powerful antidotes to negativity. By deliberately focusing on what is good, even in difficult circumstances, the mind gradually shifts its default state from fear to hope, from complaint to appreciation. Similarly, mindfulness and meditation teach the mind to observe thoughts without being enslaved by them. Instead of spiraling into stress, a person learns to pause, breathe, and respond calmly. Surrounding oneself with positive influences, uplifting books, encouraging friends, and supportive environments, also weakens the grip of negativity. Quitting the habit of feeding the mind with negativity and stress requires awareness, discipline, and patience. It means noticing the inner dialogue, challenging destructive thoughts, and replacing them with constructive ones. It means understanding that stress is not always about circumstances but about perception, and perception can be changed. Most importantly, it means realizing that peace is not something found outside but something cultivated inside. A calm, positive mind does not just create happiness, it builds resilience. Challenges still come, but they are faced with clarity instead of panic, with strength instead of weakness. Life is too short to be lived in the shadows of negative thinking. Every moment spent worrying, doubting, or resenting is a moment stolen from joy, growth, and love. By breaking free from this deadly habit, one not only saves their health and mind but also opens the door to a future filled with opportunity, peace, and fulfillment. The world outside may be chaotic, but the world within can be calm if one chooses to stop feeding the flames of negativity and instead nurture the seeds of positivity. Staying in toxic relationships and environments is one of the most damaging habits a person can cling to, often without realizing how deeply it affects their health, happiness, and future. Toxicity does not always appear in obvious forms like abuse or aggression. Sometimes it is hidden in subtle negativity, constant criticism, manipulation, or energy-draining interactions. A toxic relationship can exist with a partner, family member, friend, colleague, or even within a community or workplace. Similarly, toxic environments are spaces where negativity, stress, and unhealthy dynamics dominate. Remaining in such situations for too long poisons the mind, weakens the body, and prevents growth. What makes this habit deadly is not just the immediate discomfort but the long-term consequences: lost self-worth, wasted time, broken dreams, and a life lived far below its true potential. At the heart of toxic relationships lies a lack of respect and balance. Healthy relationships nurture, uplift, and provide mutual support. Toxic ones drain energy, erode confidence, and make a person doubt their worth. When someone is constantly criticized, judged, or belittled, they begin to internalize those voices. Over time, they may start believing the negativity, thinking they are incapable or unworthy of better treatment. This mental erosion is often worse than physical harm because it shapes self-identity. A person trapped in a toxic relationship might still function outwardly, going to work, meeting responsibilities, but inside, they feel powerless, broken, and lost. Toxic environments, such as workplaces filled with gossip, backstabbing, or unrealistic demands, also damage mental and physical health. When people spend hours daily in environments where they feel undervalued, overworked, or constantly on edge, stress becomes their constant companion. Chronic stress leads to exhaustion, insomnia, weakened immunity, and eventually burnout. Many people stay in such environments because of fear of losing income, fear of starting over, or fear of change. Yet by staying, they pay a heavy price: their health, their happiness, and their creativity. They end up merely surviving instead of thriving, trapped in cycles of frustration and regret. Another dangerous aspect of toxic relationships is manipulation. Manipulators use guilt, emotional blackmail, or subtle control to bend others to their will. They thrive on keeping others dependent, weak, or fearful. A person in such a relationship may find themselves saying yes when they want to say no, sacrificing the dreams to please someone else, or living with constant anxiety about the other person's reactions. Over time, this robs them of freedom and individuality. Instead of building their own future, they live someone else's script. This habit of staying tied to manipulators often stems from hope that the person will change, that things will improve, or that enduring suffering is somehow noble. Sadly, in most cases, nothing changes until the victim chooses to walk away. Family relationships can be particularly challenging. Society often pressures people to maintain ties no matter how damaging they are. While love and forgiveness are important, there is a difference between healthy compromise and enduring constant toxicity. A family member who demeans, abuses, or sabotages others creates a cycle of trauma that can pass through generations. Staying in such relationships without setting boundaries only deepens wounds. The truth is that love does not mean tolerating harm. Protecting one's peace, even if it means distancing from family, is sometimes the healthiest choice a person can make. Friendships can also become toxic when they are based on jealousy, competition, or exploitation. A true friend celebrates your success, supports your struggles, and encourages your growth. A toxic friend, however, belittles your achievements, disappears when you need help, or uses you only for their own benefit. Remaining in such friendships out of habit, loyalty, or fear of loneliness slowly corrodes happiness. It sends the subconscious message that one is willing to accept less than they deserve. Over time, this lowers self-esteem and sets a dangerous pattern for all other relationships. Romantic toxic relationships are perhaps the most consuming. Love is often confused with possession, control, or dependency. People stay with partners who lie, cheat, manipulate, or even abuse them, hoping that love will eventually heal the wounds. But genuine love cannot exist without respect, honesty, and trust. Staying in such relationships not only damages the present but also destroys the possibility of a healthy future. The longer a person stays, the harder it becomes to leave, as fear of loneliness or starting over grows stronger than the desire for freedom. Yet the cost of staying is devastating. broken confidence, emotional scars, and years of lost potential. The danger of toxic environments extends beyond personal relationships. Communities and social circles filled with negativity also shape the mind. Being surrounded by constant complaining, gossip, or fear-based thinking creates an atmosphere where hope and ambition struggle to survive. People unconsciously absorb the energy of those around them. If they spend too much time with those who mock dreams, fear progress, or cling to mediocrity, they eventually mirror the same attitudes. This is why it is often said that you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Staying in toxic environments means becoming shaped by them, no matter how strong you believe yourself to be. The impact of toxic relationships and environments is not limited to emotions, it directly affects physical health. Constant negativity and stress increase blood pressure, weaken immunity, and heighten the risk of chronic diseases. A toxic partner or workplace can literally take years off a person's life. Studies have shown that people in unhappy relationships are more likely to develop heart disease, depression, and other serious conditions. The body cannot thrive when the mind is trapped in constant distress. Choosing to stay in toxicity, therefore, is not just an emotional burden, it is a health hazard. Breaking free from this deadly habit requires courage. It is not easy to walk away from relationships or environments that have become familiar, even if they are painful. Fear of loneliness, financial instability, or judgment from others often chains people in place. Yet the first step to freedom is recognizing that staying is not an act of strength but of self-destruction. Setting boundaries, seeking healthier environments, and surrounding oneself with supportive people are essential. This does not mean cutting ties in anger or bitterness, it means choosing peace over chaos, growth over stagnation, and health over harm. The transformation that happens when someone leaves toxicity is profound. They begin to rediscover themselves, to hear their own thoughts clearly, and to rebuild confidence. Opportunities that once seemed invisible appear. Creativity returns, health improves, and hope becomes real again. By removing toxic influences, a person creates space for healthy, uplifting relationships and environments to enter their life. It is like clearing a polluted room and opening the windows to let in fresh air. The difference is immediate and life-changing. Ultimately, staying in toxic relationships and environments is a habit rooted in fear and resignation. It is deadly because it slowly erodes life from the inside out. Walking away may be difficult, but it is the only way to reclaim health, happiness, and the future. A person cannot flourish while surrounded by poison. They must choose to protect their energy, to honor their worth, and to create a life where peace and growth are possible. Choosing freedom from toxicity is not selfish, it is survival, and it is the beginning of a life lived with true dignity and joy. Procrastination and wasting precious time are among the deadliest habits because they silently rob life without leaving immediate scars. Unlike smoking or unhealthy eating, which show their consequences through physical symptoms, procrastination hides behind excuses and false comfort. It convinces the mind that there will always be more time, that tasks can be done later, and that delaying important action is harmless. Yet every hour wasted becomes a lost opportunity that can never be recovered. Days turn into weeks, weeks into months, and months into years, until one day a person wakes up realizing that the dreams remain unfulfilled, their potential unused, and their life defined more by avoidance than achievement. Time is the most valuable resource given to us, more valuable than money or possessions, because once lost, it cannot be earned back. Wasting it is not just a bad habit, it is a slow form of self-destruction. At its core, Procrastination is not laziness but avoidance. People delay tasks not because they cannot do them, but because they fear discomfort, failure, or the effort required. The mind chooses immediate pleasure, scrolling through social media, watching videos, chatting idly, over the discipline needed for meaningful progress. This habit feels safe in the short term, but it plants seeds of regret for the future. Every time a person chooses temporary comfort over long-term success, they weaken their self-control and reinforce the cycle of procrastination. Over time, they stop believing in their own ability to follow through. The dreams remain ideas instead of realities, because they never take the consistent action required to bring them to life. The cost of procrastination is not limited to wasted hours. It erodes confidence and creates constant stress. Tasks do not disappear when ignored, they pile up. The longer they are delayed, the more overwhelming they appear. A student who postpones studying feels greater anxiety as exams approach. A professional who delays projects finds deadlines crushing down with unbearable pressure. In both cases, the stress could have been avoided by consistent effort, but procrastination magnifies problems instead of solving them. The irony is that procrastinators often feel busier and more stressed than those who take action, because their minds are always filled with guilt and worry about unfinished work. They spend more energy avoiding tasks than it would take to simply complete them. Another hidden danger of procrastination is the loss of opportunities. Life is full of doors that open only for a short time. A chance to apply for a job, learn a skill, invest in something valuable, or build a meaningful relationship often comes with an expiration date. Those who act quickly seize the moment and reap rewards. Those who delay often find the opportunity gone forever. The habit of procrastination blinds people to how quickly life moves. They assume the future will always provide another chance, but time is not infinite. Every delay pushes dreams further away until they fade entirely. Wasting time is closely connected to procrastination, but it takes an even subtler form. Many people are not deliberately avoiding tasks, they are simply unaware of how much time they waste daily on unproductive activities. Hours disappear in endless scrolling, gossip, entertainment, or meaningless routines. While relaxation and leisure are important, excessive indulgence becomes theft of one's future. Imagine if all the hours spent mindlessly were invested in learning, creating, exercising, or building relationships. The difference in life outcomes would be staggering. Yet because wasted time feels harmless in the moment, people rarely realize the damage until years have passed. Looking back, they see a trail of unfulfilled potential and wonder where the time went. This deadly habit also shapes character. A person who constantly procrastinates develops a reputation for unreliability. They lose trust in themselves and from others. Friends, colleagues, and family stop depending on them because they rarely deliver when needed. Opportunities bypass them not because they lack talent but because they lack consistency. In contrast, those who respect time gain discipline, credibility, and influence. The difference lies not in intelligence or luck but in how seriously one values each moment. Procrastination also feeds regret, one of the most painful emotions a human can carry. Many people at the end of their lives do not regret the things they tried and failed, but the things they never attempted because they kept waiting for the right time. The right time rarely arrives. Life will always present obstacles, lack of money, lack of energy, lack of clarity, but action taken in imperfection is always better than waiting for perfection that never comes. Each day wasted feeds the fire of future regret, while each step forward, no matter how small, builds a foundation of achievement and satisfaction. Another dimension of procrastination is how it weakens discipline in all areas of life. Once the mind becomes accustomed to delaying one thing, it delays others too. A person who procrastinates at work often procrastinates in health, relationships, and personal growth. They postpone exercise, delay apologies, put off pursuing dreams. Life becomes a cycle of, "I'll start tomorrow," but tomorrow rarely arrives. Eventually, procrastination becomes part of their identity. They see themselves as someone who never follows through. Breaking this identity is possible, but it requires conscious effort to replace the habit of delay with the habit of action. The relationship between procrastination and fear is deep. Many people procrastinate not because they don't want to succeed, but because success itself is frightening. Achieving goals requires change, responsibility, and vulnerability. Fear of judgment, failure, or even success makes avoidance feel safer. But safety built on procrastination is an illusion. While action carries risks, inaction guarantees failure. The greatest risks in life often come from the things we don't do, not from the things we attempt. Escaping the grip of procrastination and time wasting requires a shift in perspective. Time must be seen as sacred, as the most precious currency of life. Money lost can be earned again, but time lost is gone forever. Respecting time means valuing each day as a gift and using it intentionally. Even small steps toward important goals are better than grand plans delayed endlessly. Building habits of discipline, such as starting tasks immediately, breaking big goals into smaller steps, and eliminating distractions, creates momentum. Over time, the habit of action replaces the habit of delay. Equally important is the practice of self-honesty. Procrastinators often hide behind excuses. "I work better under pressure," "I'm too tired today," or "I'll do it when I feel ready." But honesty reveals that these are lies the mind tells to justify avoidance. True growth begins when one stops negotiating with laziness and starts acting regardless of mood. The discipline to act despite discomfort is what separates those who achieve from those who dream but never do. Ultimately, procrastination and wasting time are deadly because they kill life quietly, not with a sudden blow but with countless small cuts. Every moment wasted accumulates into years lost, and those years define a person's legacy. Choosing to break this habit is choosing to honor one's potential and create a future worth living. Time will pass regardless of how it is used. The question is whether it will pass filled with action, growth, and fulfillment, or with regret, avoidance, and unfulfilled dreams. The choice lies in every decision made today, not tomorrow. Acting now, even imperfectly, is the only way to break free from the deadly grip of procrastination and reclaim the power of time.